Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Carrie Hawker-Diaz. So glad you're here listening. Okay, today's episode features a powerful conversation you will not want to miss. Tessa White, also known as the Job Doctor, returns to the show with expert advice for navigating challenges at work. We all have them, right? Whether you're thinking about asking for a raise or figuring out how to handle that difficult coworker, this episode is full of practical tips that you can use right now. So let's dive in. Today we're joined by the one and only Job Doctor Tessa. Thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so happy to be here, Carrie. It's fun to be here and talk about something that I love so much.
I mean, you're so good at it. So you are have gone viral on TikTok. You're a published author. You have helped thousands of people navigate tricky workplace dynamics with clarity, confidence, and a little bit of sass. Okay, in this episode, we're going to dive deep into communication, specifically how to navigate conflict and hard conversations, which we all deal with in our workplaces without putting our jobs, our relationships, or our sense of self at risk. Okay, Tessa, quickly, we know you, but for new listeners, you've built a huge following as the Job Doctor. How did that persona come to life, and was there a moment that sparked it all?
Well, yes, actually, I'm an accidental influencer. Absolutely.
The best ones are.
I had no intention of becoming an influencer, but my daughter, Hannah, she had quite a social media following, and she said, hey, you really need to post this stuff online. So I did. I posted it online and forgot about it. And a couple of days later, my son called from California, and he said, Mom, my girlfriend says you're on her For You page. Is that possible? And I was like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. And I went back and I had 10,000 followers after, I think it was 3 days.
Wow.
And so it just was a freight train after that. I think it was timing as much as anything. I'm not that good.
I disagree. You are good.
I have useful things to say, but it really was, everybody was locked in their houses. And I just came out at a time when people were looking for help and advice. And it just took off. It took off just like crazy, and I've just been trying to catch up ever since. So I think I have about 1.2 million followers in total on now.
Just a couple.
Yeah, just a few. I forget that I actually know who I am. I was on the river fishing, and there was a storm, and so the sound carried, and all of a sudden somebody across the river said, I know that voice anywhere. Are you the Job Doctor? And so, I get recognized in funny places, and it just blows my mind always.
It's so awesome. It's so cool, Tessa. Well, what drew you to this specific niche of career advice, especially helping people deal with the emotional and messy parts of work, which we all know?
I think it was because I had my own messy journey. I was a single mom trying to figure it out and started as an administrative assistant and made my way up to the head of HR. So I had a lot of messiness along the way. Plus, I was in HR, and in HR, you are in the room where it happens, literally. Yeah. You're seeing conversations and what your managers are really saying behind closed doors. And there just came a point I thought, I wonder if people really know what's going on. I don't think they do.
Yeah.
And I started to get a lot of people calling me. They called it the Ask Tessa hotline, my friends did. And so what started as the Ask Tessa hotline ended up being the Job Doctor.
Oh my goodness. Well, what's one thing about you that people might be surprised to learn beyond the viral videos and career tips? What's one thing?
I think people always find it funny to think that I'm a fly fisherman. I'm a die-hard outdoor girl. And they see me in my, fancy suits and
all dressed up
and talking and working with board members and that type of thing. And I actually have a very laid back side to me.
Yeah.
And my kids say I have more pictures of fish in my phone than I have pictures of them.
Would you say you're outdoorsy or outsidey? Because I think I'm more outsidey, but would you say you're outdoorsy? Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm pretty outdoorsy.
Okay. That's so fun to know about you. Okay. How do you know going into the workplace when it's time to speak up at work and when it might be wiser to wait? If we're upset, I know we can get emotional with things. How do we know when it's time to speak up?
I would say, it's time to speak up if you have an emotional reaction to something. That doesn't mean you speak up then, by the way.
Okay.
That means
that makes sense.
That means that something got you and there's something that needs to be addressed. That's your sign that something needs to be addressed. I'm a big believer, though, that you wait till the emotion's gone from it so that you can actually craft a good conversation.
Yeah.
Because what happens in the workplace is people either go silent and just leave companies and say, I've had it. This company should know that they're a piece of crap. Or they go the other direction and they go completely, crazy and they scorch earth. And neither approach works. So this is helping people come to kind of a moderate middle ground that I think is what I can help people do and what I do best.
So take a breath before you respond.
Yeah. Know that there's something going on that you have to bring it up, but then just chill for a minute.
I think that's good advice. What are some phrases or sentence starters that help like de-escalate tension instead of, like you said, inflaming it and just lighting it on fire?
Well, let's start with the principle is that conflict is going to exist whether you like it or don't in the workplace. And if you don't know how to address conflict, it'll be a fatal flaw in your career. So it starts with a job offer, right? A little bit of inherent conflict. I want this, you want that. And it continues in various ways. Like in a meeting would be a really common thing. Let's say somebody talks over you. I've had that as the only woman in the boardroom many times. And in that regard, something as simple as just putting your hand up and saying, stop, I have something to say. Just like that. Not stop, I have something to say, but just something that's
just calmly.
Simple can actually change the conversation. The whole idea is that you want to keep the conversation open, and you keep it open by not accusing somebody or assuming bad intent in another person. And so there are magic phrases and there are ways to have conversations that I think can help drive better outcomes.
Yeah, because when you immediately accuse, it's that someone's going to go on the defense, and it's just keep it open.
Well, think about this. As simple as a phrase as this is, hey, Joe, did you forget to set your alarm clock again? One sentence. Think of how much ill intent is in that one sentence. You think it's just a lighthearted thing, but it assumes Joe's lazy, Joe doesn't care, Joe's got a problem. And how much different would Joe respond if instead you had a conversation like this and said, hey, Joe, I've noticed that you've been late 3 out of the last 6 days, and it's not like you. You've usually been on time, but you've progressively gone from being 10 minutes late to about 20 minutes late a day. Is there something going on that would help me understand?
That's very different.
Do you see how that feels?
Yeah.
And so that's why I say that assuming good intent in the other is a key to keeping conversation moving and flowing and open and resolving things in the workplace.
That's great. That's great, Tessa. What advice do you have for people who are scared and fear being labeled like difficult just because they want to say something or just for advocating for themselves?
Well, I would say, first of all, you're normal for thinking that, and especially women. Most often women feel like if they say something that it means they're going to be labeled as a troublemaker, and so I see that a lot. Know that silent people that are quiet, it always leads to quit. Quiet leads to quit every time.
Interesting. So if you're upset about something and you're just consistently kind of staying quiet and letting it build, that quiet leads to quit.
It does.
Okay.
Because we get resentful, just like in a relationship. If you don't say anything and the same thing happens over and over and you're like, I shouldn't have to write the script. Well, that's not actually how it works in real life. You actually have to bring up what's bothering you and be able to resolve it. And what's interesting is the surveys will tell you that Elizabeth McCune did research for Microsoft. And what they learned is people who speak up 14 times or more, I think it was in a given year, have high 90s engagement rates.
Interesting. 14 times a year.
14 times. That could be something like just bringing up in a meeting, like I feel this way, or I want to do this, or have we thought about that, or I'm not happy about this. But if you drop that in half to 7, your happiness factor goes down by 30 points or more.
Wow.
And so people think if they're quiet and don't have conflict, it's going to be better. And it's just simply not true. The data wouldn't bear it out.
Yeah. Okay, Tessa, say it's like a reoccurring issue, right? How can someone bring up like poor management or unclear expectations without sounding like we're accusing, like we just talked about, or we're ungrateful. I think a lot of us think, I don't want to sound ungrateful because I'm not, but this is bothering me, if it's like a reoccurring issue.
Yeah. Okay. First thing I want people to know is you're going to be uncomfortable whether you bring it up or not. So let's start there. If you say nothing, you live with that discomfort. If you say something, you live with the discomfort. You might as well live with the discomfort that might allow it to change in the future. So let's start there.
Good point.
I think that's really important, and it's gotten me through some really hard conversations. If you want to have a conversation with a recurring problem, there's a model that I think is really simple, really easy to use. What I expected, what I observed. So what I expected to have happen in the situation, what actually happened in the situation. That's called describing the gap. And it's really hard for people to do. But if you can identify where the gap is in your expectation versus what's happening, you have a really good shot at solving it. All right, then you move to what is the consequence it had on me or on others or to the team. And then the third is you ask a magic question. A magic question is one that does not assume bad intent. It assumes good intent. Is there something going on that would help me understand would be an example of that? Or is that what you intended would be another great example of that.
Okay. So find that gap in between. That's great. What's the most common communication breakdown that you see between managers and employees? What did you see?
People have halfway conversations. Most common problem. A halfway conversation is when you say something that is not all the way to the truth to soften it, but you expect them to understand 100% of what you mean. So an example of a halfway conversation might be, let's do an extreme example. If you're in a company meeting and they say, is everybody on board for this idea? You raise your hand, you're like, yes. And then people automatically walk out of the meeting and say, that is never going to work. I'm so glad that's on them, not me. That would be a really common extreme example. But in one-on-one dialogue, it might be a manager saying, hey, how do you like working here? Just checking in on you on your 90 days. And you say, I thought there would be a little more training. I'm not sure I know what I'm doing, but I'm doing the best I can and feel like I'm coming along. But you go home and you tell your partner, this is the worst company I've ever worked for. They said that there was going to be all of this training, and I've literally taken one class, and it's a horrific mess. And so halfway conversations happen all the time. But how do we expect to ever resolve something if we're not talking about the truth?
Sure.
And you can botch most of the conversation, but if you go back with one of those magic questions with your manager and say, is that what you intended? It can really solve a lot. Like you would say, when I expected when I came on that there would be about a month and a half full of training. But what's happened is I had one training class and I've had one other supervisor check in on me once. I'm not really sure that I feel like I have the tools that I need to do the job. Is there additional training that I could use, or is there something else that's available to me that would help me succeed?
Sure. That's being a little more straightforward, but having the facts and talking about your needs of what you need.
Right. Especially helps if you're having a conversation about raises, which is, a really hot topic for people who say, I'm being overworked, or I have too much work on my plate, and they keep loading it onto my plate. What happens is people end up saying, this is ridiculous. I'm doing the work of 3 people. I'm going to leave. And a manager then is shocked and says, I thought I was being really good to this person and elevating them with the company and giving them more responsibility. I had no idea they were unhappy.
That communication was just
But
not
the communication
there.
was non-existent.
Yeah. Well, I liked how you compared it to like personal relationships too, because a lot of time in our relationships, we just expect the other person to know how we feel. And you're like, you know me, you should know. And that's just not how it works. So it's same in your workplace. You got to communicate. We're going to go back to raises too. I want to ask you more about that too. So I'm going to put that
everybody
here.
loves that topic.
I know, that's a good one. Okay. What's the difference between like a healthy confrontation and a professional self-sabotage?
Yeah, I would say healthy is if you go after it like we're partners and we're trying to solve a problem together. That's good conflict. Whether it's fighting for budget money, or prioritization, a raise, whatever it is, we're partners trying to solve a problem.
You're not against each other.
Right, you're not against each other.
Right.
The conversation is totally different if you're partners in a business. When it turns into bad conversation is if you're trying to If you're assuming bad intent and trying to back somebody into a wall or into a decision by just having better, I have a better argument, I have better facts, that's never going to play well, because having sat through thousands of these arguments between people, what I can tell you is the moment somebody feels backed against the wall, you've lost you've lost.
Yeah.
You've lost negotiation. You've lost the ability to act like partners and actually get to resolution on something.
Okay, say that it has gotten to that point where emotions are running high. How do you recommend people pause or reset without avoiding the issue, which is what we want to get to eventually?
Yeah, I've had to do that so many times in my own career. Let me give you an example. The corporate executives were on our way to New York to do a board meeting with Blackstone. I went to the airport, and there was the head of IT in the airport. And we're like, where is everybody? And we're like, I don't know. We're going to miss the plane. We called, and they said, oh, sorry, we forgot to tell you we're taking the corporate jet. We're like, oh, great. That was nice to be excluded. So we get to the board meeting in New York. I do my thing, get ready to get on the jet to go home, and suddenly the head of IT's gone. I'm like, where's he? So I call him. He goes, oh, he was so shy. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry, but they invited me to join him on the way home. I was the only one not invited. I was also the only woman. Now, should I say something? Should I not say something? In the moment, there is no way I should have said something. I would have lost my ish on these people. But what I did was I went home, thought about it, and then I crafted the conversation I wanted to have. What was expected, what was observed, the consequence it has to me, to the relationship, and then a magic question. And I decided I was going to have that awful and comfortable conversation with the CEO.
Yeah.
Now, did it solve everything? It didn't solve everything. But to say it and have a boundary and be able to express why it was concerning to me certainly moved the needle somewhat. And that's, I guess, a more realistic expectation, is if you continue to have problems with a manager or something, this conversation model isn't going to fix it overnight, but what it is going to do is give you boundaries and give you a way and a framework to have conversations without getting so emotional. Because when you're emotional, the kiss of death, right, is to be emotional in those conversations. It's so much better if something triggers you, to wait, go craft the conversation you want to have. You can even bring the notes in and then have that conversation. Because when you can share examples of the gap with real data, with real information and how it's affecting you, and then ask that magic question, you at least have a fighting chance, because those magic questions assume good intent and allow the conversation to continue rather than shutting it down.
Yeah, it just goes better. And I like how you said earlier, you said, if something does ignite emotion, that means it's meaningful to you, and that's okay. So it's not wrong that you got upset about it, but just take a little bit. Take a little bit before you react. Take a minute. Okay, do you think we're more prone to conflict in remote work environments where like tone and intent get lost in messages and emails, or in person where like body language and tone can play such a huge role?
Well, it's interesting because remote work tends to promote this very pernicious kind of conflict that nobody is speaking out loud about.
Interesting.
Because we're not talking to each other, we're not seeing each other, we're just reading into texts and emails and messages. It actually can get explosive without anybody expressing anything much faster, because we're all just getting caught up in our own story about what's actually happening.
You're not in person.
Yeah. So it can be really, really interesting remote. People who do 100% remote, it takes some time to adjust to that. And, there are certain professions like IT or developers or such, and their personalities are generally prone and do quite well in that.
Yeah.
But you throw the rest of us in the mix, and there's a lot of reading intent that doesn't actually mean what we think it means.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people getting wound up about a lot of things without ever having a conversation at all.
Well, in this day and age, when it's communication with texts and emails, they can so easily be taken wrong, or, it's hard to explain that unless you're in person. But I was thinking the opposite, where I would think like when people are around each other, and it's like you see your coworkers more than your family, and it may get messy. I was thinking in person, but it's better to communicate in person.
Well, you can track it better in person.
Yeah.
Like I can look at you and go, oh, I just said something that irritated her. I can see the irritation in your eyes. But when you're remote, we're all reading all this stuff into the conversations that are happening virtually. Yeah. And so it's really hard it's just a totally different kind of conflict.
Interesting. That's definitely interesting. Okay. What's your advice for someone who's been gaslit or like shut down repeatedly? How did they advocate for themselves without burning out or blowing up? So maybe they have been speaking up, but they're constantly being gaslit.
Okay. I'm going to try and take it from a corporate executive kind of example. It's really tricky. First of all, power dynamics are real. And so if you're getting gaslit by a manager, and I'm going to assume you've tried to have those conversations and they have not been successful. Here's the risk you have. Your choices are you skip level. And what's going to happen when you skip level, to speak honestly, is they're going to go to your manager and say, so-and-so said this, and they're going to try and resolve it. And it actually comes back and backlashes on you. So it's really hard to do skip levels or go up and tell somebody else and ask them to try and solve it. It's also equally hard to go to HR and say, HR, I want you to handle this, because HR can't fix it unless they talk to your manager and other people. And kind of the general rule is the more people that are involved in trying to solve the problem, the hairier it gets and the more explosive it can get.
Okay.
So it leaves you with limited choices. You either continue to try and have conversations and build the relationship with your manager directly and carefully, which will require effort on your part, but can go well if you keep at it. You can outlast your manager. Everybody's general time is going to be 4 or 5 years at most, and you can outlast them, or you can start asking your manager, can I do some cross-functional projects, and start learning what other managers, other people in other parts of the company are doing, and set yourself up, plant some seeds and set yourself up to be able to make a pivot into another part of the company. Or, of course, you can always leave altogether, but at least if you know that what you're doing is not working and you're getting gaslit, you can begin to get super crystal clear on, I'm going to finish this project so that I can put it on my resume. I'm going to go in with a single focus every day so that I have this thing that I can knock off and use it as a proof point for my resume. Either way, your choices are limited if you continue to try with somebody and you can't get anywhere. You're not going to wake up one day and go, oh, magically I said it the right way and it's working. It's either chipping away at it at really small intervals over and over, or making a different choice in a very strategic way.
And I guess at that point, if you've tried for whatever, everyone's timeline is different, 6 months, and you feel like that's, a while or a year, and you ultimately decide what's in your control, what's out of your control. And then you've tried, but I like that advice. Just be direct too with one of the options. If you go above and you add more people in, it just gets tricky.
Oh, it's going to blow up. I mean, this is coming from an HR person. This was my profession. And I can tell you, it's not going to go well for you.
She saw it not going
well, people. It's like The Bachelorette, right? I love watching The Bachelor, Bachelorette. But if one of the girls talks smack on the others, it always blows up on that girl. It doesn't blow up on the one that's the problem.
Right.
It's the same is true with work.
Right. Just go direct. Okay, let's circle back. Do you see how I use that? I've never used that in work form, but I know that a lot of people use that. We're circling back to raises and how people ask, what's maybe one do with a raise, like how to ask, and then we'll go to the don'ts.
Okay. Number one thing in asking for a raise is you have to come at it from what the company gets. You have to. Most raise requests sound something like this. I've worked really hard. I've absorbed work of so-and-so. It's been 2 years since I got a raise, and I think I'm deserving of it. Not one thing did I just say have anything to do with what the company gets. That's all about me, and the things that have happened.
You're trying to prove yourself.
Yeah, it's not going to work. That's white noise to a company. Okay. When you start to say, here are the things you've gotten from me and the results that I've gotten. So let's just take a social media manager or recruiter. I have been able to bring in 60 hires. The average was 45 in the department. I've got 60 hires in the same time zone. When you can say that I've saved money, I've made money, I've created efficiencies, I've cut out steps from a process. That's how you show value to a company. And when you come at it from what you get as a company, not what I want, you will have 10 times more success with getting your raise. It would sound something like this. Hey, since I've been in the role, I came in and I looked over the recruiting budget, and I was able to cut $100,000 out of the recruiting budget. In addition, my recruiters are 15% more efficient than they were before, and they're each filling 5 more positions, which translates into 50 extra positions in a given year. In addition, I've been able to cut costs from this vendor, and I have been able to roll out a company employee referral program that has brought in an additional 500 people into the company with no extra cost. So you're making the argument for what I've done, and then you paint the picture of what you can do in the future. Here's what my plans are next and how I think I can add value. Then you make the ask for the money. It's just like when you go to a store or you're online shopping and you see 2 backpacks and you see the features, right?
Yeah.
You put them side by side, and I like the features of this backpack, therefore I'm going to do it. The same is true when you're asking for a raise. Right, you have to identify, you're selling yourself, you have to identify the features that you bring.
Sure. And I imagine this is better in person. Like instead of
yes.
You do this in person. If
You
people
do
are
it in
thinking,
person.
well, I don't want to bother them, I'm just going to send an email, and
No.
they'll respect that because I'm not taking up their time, but in person.
In person, but tell them what you want to talk about, right? I want to talk to you about this.
Little heads up.
Here's a heads up. I want to talk to you about this.
Okay.
Then here's the other mistake people make. They'll talk about it, and they go to all the uncomfortable work of putting it together, and then they just say, I'm going to leave it in your hands and, think about it and get back with me. You must close the deal by saying, can we talk about this, and let me give you the weekend, and can we set up a time to talk next week?
Oh, okay.
You got to close it, right? You got to
Yeah.
close it. The other thing when you're asking for a raise that's really important is if you put them between a yes and a no, like give me this raise or not,
Yeah.
you have 50-50 odds. But if you put them between a yes and a yes, your odds go way up. So you may say, it would be acceptable to do a $10,000 raise, and here's also the data that would support this. However, I would also be interested in doing something that's a bonus program. If I accomplish X, Y, Z, then I would also achieve this bonus. That would also work for me because I have a lot of confidence in my ability to deliver. So then you're putting them in between a yes and a yes, and it's much more powerful and you have a much higher ability to get what you're asking for.
A yes and a yes. That's really good. Okay, Tessa, anything to end this conversation with raises, but anything else you should not do? Like, don't do this.
How about a couple more things to think about when you're asking for raises that are super important to understand? When you ask for a raise, companies always like free. Free is better. So how you apply that? Asking for a raise in the future or a bonus based on somebody is going to be, or a title change is better.
Okay.
Free is better. Companies always like to put off now what they can pay later. So if then proposals, if I do X, Y, Z, then you would give me this. That's how board of directors pay senior executives. Oh. And it's because boards don't want to pay unless they get the result, neither do companies. So if then proposals are typically very successful as well when you're asking. And the last thing is, a lot of people have a bonus as a component of their pay, but people just focus on their base pay, which is ridiculous. If you leave one bonus plan to another company to another, people get screwed all the time because they think, I had a 10% bonus there, now I have a 10% bonus, but they're prorated when they go to the new company.
Oh.
So negotiating that you get a full bonus payout year one, because you're walking away from a full bonus payout, will keep you from getting, $5,000, $10,000 deducted from your pay. And people get hit on that all the time. You can negotiate it while you're in negotiating, but it's really hard to negotiate after the fact.
How long should you wait before you ask?
For a raise?
Yeah.
Wait. The general rule is wait till you've done something cool.
Good point.
Wait till you've done something really cool. That's when you have leverage.
Yeah.
So you either wait till you've done something cool, or this is a worse form of leverage, but it's still leverage. You wait until other people have left and they're in a situation where they really need you. So there's a big project due and you have special expertise. Some people have left the team and you may be the only person left that has, the knowledge.
Yeah.
That would be not as good, but it's still very, very effective as a time to ask for a raise.
That's a good, yeah. Wait till you do something cool, people. Because there's the timing is right. Okay, that was great. Thank you, Tessa. Okay, what role does self-awareness play in effective communication? Going back to communication in the workplace, especially in high stress environments.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's pretty important. People like to think, and in fact, I put out to my social media followers, I'm like, they'll say like, the problem is always my bad boss, the bad company, or my bad coworkers. But only 2% think the problem could be them. 98% think it's
everybody else.
Yeah, and I'm here to tell you, it's you too. It is always you too. Yeah. And so people are not very self-aware. And so that's why learning to have the right conversation about these gaps becomes important. Because if you go into a conversation always assuming it's somebody else, you're never going to get to the core of what's really going on.
Take a look at yourself as well. I think that helps.
Yeah.
What chapter in your book do you wish that every burned out or confused employee would read first? Like, what should we go to?
Well, if you're burned out, I would probably have you go to the chapter on that. There's a chapter, Lies About Burnout.
Okay.
And one of the important principles is people will leave a company because they go, I can't stand it anymore. And I say, what's it? Let's talk about what it is. And often we recreate, if we leave a company, we recreate the exact same dynamic in new companies. And it has a lot to do with our boundaries. So your manager doesn't have a magic ball that says, you're full, Carrie. It is up to you to be able to share, I have reached my limit, or I have I have prioritized these things and this is what fits in my day. And if you just keep taking it, and you get burned out and you leave, you will recreate it in another company till you can learn to have the right conversation. So the right conversation is around priorities, not I'm burned out, help me. It's here's my top priorities, my second, my third. If things get tight, I'm going to drop the third. Are those the right ways to look at the 1, 2s, and 3s?
Yeah.
And help create a narrative with your manager about what needs to be in and what might be out. That's the right way to do it.
Because that's so true. Wherever you go, if you don't figure that out, it's just going to come up again. It's going to be the same thing, no matter what workplace you're in.
Yeah.
Can you leave us with one powerful sentence to say when you're trying to assert a boundary at work without sounding like confrontational?
Mm-hmm. Let me think. What would I say?
Without, like we talked about, without being, putting someone in that corner, which you said you've seen a million times, and that never, ever works.
There's a section in the book that's called Quick Validates that I would recommend people read. And it's about 12 different phrases that you can use. So if your boss says something to you, and when the hair stands up on the back of your head and you think, oh, they think I'm not working hard, or they think this is happening. Quick Validates are just simple phrases like, I want to make sure I understood that correctly. That would be a really good one. I want to make sure I understand that correctly and we're on the same page. Or repeating back. So this is what I'm hearing you say. If somebody says something to you that feels wrong and you don't agree with, like in a performance plan, it's, I hear what you're saying. I may disagree with you, but I hear what you're saying. And I'll do my best to help come at it and, from a way that satisfies it for you.
Sure, I like that. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Because that's what people argue about is they just talk over each other. They talk over. And so if you're in a conflict that's starting, being able to say, let me understand what I hear you saying, or I hear what you're saying is a really powerful phrase because it stops somebody dead in their tracks and it diffuses their energy because they just want to be heard.
Yeah, people just want to be, instead of trying to understand, you want to be understood.
Yeah,
that's
right.
It's never going to work that way. With your book, what do you want people to take away to be? What do you want people to experience?
I guess I want people to know they have more power than they think in the workplace. We tend to think that we work for these dysfunctional companies and there's nothing we can do. And, if it gets bad enough, we're just going to leave and go to another company. You have so much more power than you think you have if you can master communication skills. Some very, very simple ones to be able to get conflict out in the open, resolutions, and move things forward. It'll help you get the budget you want. It'll help you get the prioritization that you need, and it will keep you from getting burned out.
And so worthwhile because most of us have to work for a very long time.
Yeah, you're working for decades, right?
You might as well learn.
And I have yet to meet somebody that says, my job is so perfect. I love everything about my job. It just doesn't happen. You go to another job, you exert 20% extra effort to show them you're amazing. Then you have to figure out how to pare back and give a normal amount of effort without them thinking you're a schmuck. And it continues and it continues and it continues.
Yeah.
Until you learn to set these better boundaries that can and learn how to communicate.
A little bit of education, a little bit of learning, a little bit of reading.
Yeah.
Pick up her book so you can learn how to communicate better. Okay, we're going to wrap up with Fresh 5 to get to know you a little better. Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, number 1, it's dinner. It's dinner time. You're at a restaurant. What are you ordering?
I'm probably going to order exactly the opposite of what my husband orders. We have exactly opposite food tastes. I'm going to go with like a poke bowl or something,
yum.
right? That's with avocado on it.
Okay. I was going to say, is it because you order different things so you can like pick off his plate,
no.
pick off, no,
No.
you're opposite.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
You are your own thing. You're on a plane. Mm-hmm. Where are you headed?
Probably headed to New York to see Broadway plays or to some private amazing fishing spot in Montana or something.
Oh, fun. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, you're on that plane. Mm-hmm. Are you talking to people next to you? Are you headphones in, I'm going to take a nap, I'm going to do my own thing?
Oh, I am not speaking to anyone. The headphones are on. And yeah, that's my quiet time.
Okay, favorite holiday?
Favorite holiday, I would say probably Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving?
Yeah. It's funny. The older I get, I don't want to cook. I don't want to plan the parties. I don't want to do squat. Like, I'm done with that.
She wants to be fishing, everyone.
Yeah. Mother's Day, I go fishing now. Yeah. But I like Thanksgiving because I just like the gathering of people and just loving on people that I love.
Being together.
Yeah.
That's good. Last one. What's making you smile right now?
I just got back from Africa, literally a couple of days ago.
Wow.
And I got to build eco domes in Africa, and I got to go on a safari. So what's making me smile is like thinking about like lions and zebras and giraffes and elephants. I would sleep at night, and right outside my room, you could see elephants walking past, and you could hear them all night long. And it was just like spectacular.
That's incredible.
It was neat.
Well, it's been so fun chatting with you, and I've learned a lot, and I know our listeners have too. If we want to pick up your book, Tessa, and follow along, where can we go? What's the best place?
Well, I would go to Amazon. That's usually the best pricing, and it's called The Unspoken Truths for Career Success, Navigating Pay, Power, and Politics in the Workplace. Yellow cover. That's where they can get the book, and they can follow me on Job Dr. Tessa on virtually any social media site.
And she's got all that amazing advice. Okay, Tessa, great to chat with you. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today. Great to see you. And thank you for listening to another episode of Fresh Off the Set. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and we will see you next week. Congrats, you made it to the end. If you want to continue to freshen up your day, you can watch us on Fresh Living every weekday on CBS Channel 2 in Utah at 1 o'clock. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel, KUTV Fresh Living, and follow us on social media. We will see you next week.